Hi, beautiful people. I'm just coming onto this Facebook Live a tad later than originally intended because we were having technical details, but we're here now. So if you're just joining this video and you haven't seen any of my other videos, then I want to speak today to the Vast Heart Summer Meditation Challenge and respond to some of the questions that have been arising for those of you who have been working with that, and also to give a further nuance to the practice for the coming month. But before we do that, I would like to just invite us all to relax into this moment and to open up for our time together. So put everything else aside, give yourself a couple of minutes to truly take a break from the sense of separate self that contracts us unnecessarily. So just by focusing on the gentle rise and fall of your breath, feel your own inhale welcoming you just to be here, and your own exhale supporting a natural melting, a natural letting go. So being drawn in and seeing what can let go without pushing or forcing. Maybe some subtle tension in your face, your neck, your chest, your belly. Maybe the following of thoughts can melt into the past. Just feel yourself naturally being drawn in to your own heart, and let it be as natural and as effortless as iron shavings will be drawn to the magnet. So placing the focus on the heart, feel as if your inhale allows more space to emerge in your heart horizontally. As if on the inhale there can be more space, feeling your heart just naturally expanding beyond the body. Just firstly sensing your interconnectedness with everyone here who's listening to this broadcast. Everyone who's reading and working with the teachings in the Way of Grace. And recognize that not just those of us of like mind are connected, but that every single being on this planet is being breathed by the same grace, the same mystery. And that what's natural is not to be threatened by one another, or even to be looking to one another as an object of fulfillment, but what's natural is to just feel love, to recognize that everything and everyone is lovable, as are you. So feel as if your heart could be that open, that wide as the horizon itself. That your heart really could be boundlessly loving. And now feel the focus coming to the vertical breath. So feeling on the inhale as if your heart could just open to receive both celestial blessings from enlightened beings, angelic forces, bodhisattvas, or just light itself. And that your heart can also feel the support of the ground, the earth, and that which created the earth. But just feel there being more space opening up for you to sense your support that is not coming through people, but is just arising from the ground of everything and the light that ignites everything. That there's so much love that is non-physical. That can bring nourishment to our heart. And a felt sense of being supported by so much more. That may feel as if you're in infinite ground and in a shower of grace and blessings simultaneously. All that just supports your heart to open more. So just also now feel the heart being breathed front and back. And so at the back of the heart, just recognize that so much has brought you to this point on the path and this point in your life that has had something to do with the love and gifts and wisdom that others have shared with you, brought down the ages to you, from your parents to teachers you might have had and their teachers, books you've read, and the great lineages of traditions that you may have studied or been influenced by. And that the front of the heart extends to the generations who will practice in the years after us. Our children and grandchildren, generations who will find their way to meditation, to spiritual truth, who will be impacted by our practice in some way. To feel the love and the wisdom that flows from other generations through to you and beyond your life to the next generation. And feel as if, as your heart is breathed front and back, there's just the sense of a continuum moving, a stream flowing. And feel the love that is that stream. And feel your heart being breathed now in all directions simultaneously. As if your heart is just a giant lotus, and the petals of that lotus just open and expand to let the radiance of your vast heart, of the vast heart, live through you, radiating its goodness and its beauty and its truth. Dissolving unnecessary suffering and separation. So that we can all rest in what always is, the love that always is. So, if you have been working with the Summer Vast Heart Meditation Challenge, and I'm delighted to see those of you who have sharing your experiences, I want today to answer some of your questions and say a little bit more about some of the things that you've raised, in the hope that that not only helps you but helps others who might be engaging the practice and encountering similar kinds of issues as they work with it. But I also want to mention that, I'm sure that there are many of us who've given it a little bit of a try and maybe, got a little lost or forgot about it or got busy with other things. And so I'm just reminding you that that happens. We don't have to make it mean anything. And as Rumi said about meditation, he just kept saying, come, come, whoever you are, even though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, come, come again, come. So my intention with this post is just to help you deepen with that practice or help you get back up on the horse if you've forgotten about it. And if this is one of the first of these broadcasts of mine you've seen, I hope it inspires you to give this very beautiful practice a go and to let it really help deepen and expand your felt sense of the grace that is your heart and how important it is that more of us get to clear out these unnecessary cobwebs of closure and really become more fully available to be the beautiful human beings that we're meant to be. So I want to say a bit about the heart and why we're focusing on the heart as the center of this particular practice. All of the great mystical traditions, speak a lot about the human heart being the access point between heaven and earth, between subtle realms of grace and our ordinary human incarnation. I'm sure that that's quite obvious to you because you can feel it whenever we work on practices to do with the heart. But of course, the heart is access point where a lot of very powerful and important essential qualities actually emerge from our experience. I'm sure you can probably feel how when you experience joy, it emerges out of the heart, as does love and empathy and compassion and kindness. But it's also true that courage and strength emerge out of our heart too. And so, this practice at the vast heart is designed not just to help you concentrate and collect your attention, like any meditation practice will involve some kind of concentration on breath, on a mantra, on something, which is extremely important and beneficial no matter what the method of concentration is. Because in this day and age where we're all using the technology that is increasingly turning us into, very impatient human beings, by scattering our attention so much all the time. Concentration practice is extremely important to help us to be able to focus and be one-pointed, which is the necessary prelude for a deeper letting go into samadhi, or just abiding in being. So the concentration practice here at the vast heart also has a secondary purpose of developing your subtle body in a very profound way. And so it might already be apparent to you, if you've been working with this practice, that the way it develops your subtle body is, firstly, it helps us to break down the presumed definition that your heart can only open as wide as your body. What we're doing here is allowing the felt sense of your heart to break down the barriers of separation, to recognize that it's the same force that is breathing you, that is breathing everyone else, even the people you don't like, or even the people that are difficult. And this is important because it helps to break down those barriers of our personality that contract and close and and sort of basically stay kind of like a tight shell when it comes to other people. When we look at our world and all that's happening in our world right now, it's actually extremely important, even when we don't hold the same point of view or we have very different values, to really stay in touch with our fundamental humanity, our fundamental sense of being one human family, and our goodwill towards everything and everyone else, even those who you don't agree with. And so the horizontal breath helps to open that up. It helps you to feel the truth that we're not actually as separate as we appear, and that what's natural the more we wake up is a natural respect and love for one another. And in that natural respect and love, to treat one another with kindness wherever we can. And so when we start to feel that, we feel more natural and we feel a lot happier, because that is what's natural. The more we wake up, we love everyone and we see that what's true about them, even when they're caught in conclusions. We don't necessarily hate them or have to separate ourselves so fiercely from them. We can feel very human towards them. And so the vertical breath that we were working with in the last month has a very different way that it develops the subtle body of the heart. And that is that it helps us to recognize that there's so much more support for us than we tend to recognize. Usually on an ordinary or ego level, we're looking for support from other people. And that's how it is when we're children. And so often we forget to take in the fact of support that is what I call vertical. And when I say vertical support, I mean support that really is always here for us in terms of the ground underneath us. And as we've explored before, the ground isn't just physical ground. We're opening on the vertical breath to recognize the support that is the great ground of being, or the mystery that creates all of this physical ground, and the trees and the plants and the oceans and the rivers and the mountains and all of that, that there's that immensity of support available for our heart to open at a whole other level. And that simultaneously, just as we receive the light of the sun that creates the day effortlessly all the time, just as that light of the sun has a very powerful effect. It activates photosynthesis in plants that makes things grow. It activates processes in our brain and our body. so we can receive love and light directly from realms that we might not even conceptually understand. And so as we feel that vertical breath, we just take in, as we feel the expansion on the inhale, the fact that there's so much more here, that there's infinite ground and there's infinite light. And in that ground and in that light is just love and support for us to be here where we are, to engage our spiritual path, and to really receive all that we need for that process. This is also extremely good news if you're going through a change, or relationships are giving way or breaking up, or the support structures of life as you've created it are changing, as they often do from time to time. It helps us to recognize that there are beings with us, that there are forces of light, that there's grace within the ground, and that our heart can perceive and receive that. It gives us the courage and the strength to not close down and to really be true to what it is that we are being called to in this life, at this point of the path. And so just a couple of questions that have arisen from some of you about that part of it, those two parts of the practice. I know that Laura Zuk mentioned that it's easier for her to feel the horizontal breath than it is to feel the vertical. Well, that's inevitable that, some aspects of this practice will come more easily to you than others. And it usually has to do with just what's more developed in you so far. And just so it's important not to make too much of that, but just to recognize that that's inevitable, and to focus on the part of the practice that isn't as easy for you, to go a little slower there, or just to be more curious as to what might be part of that, why that is harder for you. Maybe feeling the vertical breath is harder. And so that perhaps points you to get more curious about why that is for you, and just to perhaps ask for help with that. And one of the things that, Laura, you mentioned that I want to really encourage you with is that you can actually just speak in your prayers to the light itself, even though you don't understand it, or celestial beings or enlightened beings, help me be more open, help me to be more receptive. And if you have a connection in your heart to an enlightened being that isn't in a body, like Jesus or Tara or Ramana Maharshi, whoever you're drawn to, you can absolutely pray to that, even if you're not sure if it's real, and just to ask for help in, help me to become more receptive, help me to open to your support in this part of the practice. And you can feel maybe as if their hand is there at the back of your heart or on the top of your head. You can see that if that helps you. But mostly the thing is just to persist with that practice, even if you feel a little awkward. So Sangeet mentioned that for him, it's harder to feel the expansion of going down, or the expansion of the ground coming up. So I think the thing is just to focus on the felt sense of the breath allowing space in the heart on the dimension that we're working with it. So for example, to feel the expansion on the inhale, and then just to relax on the exhale, not to worry about what happens, whether things are coming up or down, just to focus on the felt sense of the expansion on the inhale, and just letting go on the exhale, and seeing what happens naturally will be helpful and good enough. So Cynthia mentioned that the vertical breathing didn't feel as open or wide as it did with the horizontal. And similar what I said to Laura about that, Cynthia, that don't make that mean anything, but just get curious as to, why that might be. So for example, a good analogy for this is our physical bodies. Like, I'm sure most of you have had the experience of starting a new exercise regime, and noticing that some things in that exercise regime are easier for you than others, and that it's tempting to just do the exercises that your body does well and easily and to skip over the things that are harder. But that's generally not a good idea, because just as if you do that, you'll likely, create an imbalance that sometimes can lead physically to an injury. So what we're wanting as we deepen in our practice is to work into our weaknesses, to work into the things that aren't as easy for us, because that is how we will get stronger. And so maybe just to spend a little bit more time on the part of the practice that is awkward for you, and maybe just to hook up with an inquiry partner and do an open-ended inquiry into, what do I know so far about the awkwardness I feel in opening to there being the possibility of infinite ground and support for me, and infinite blessings from non-physical beings. Like, how do I feel about that? Or, do I think that's just rubbish? Or what do I know about why that might be harder for me? And to not judge yourself by anything you find. And I loved what Isabel de Roik said, which was that just sitting, doing the practice without expecting anything particular to happen, but just doing it, that is absolutely the name of the game with any spiritual practice. So I really appreciate, Isabel, you writing what you wrote into the Facebook page, because there's great wisdom there. And what you shared really does really articulate very beautifully what is our part in the transformative practice of spiritual development and awakening, and what is really just in the hands of grace. And what is in our hands is showing up and doing the practice. That is what's required of you, of any of us. And to show up with sincerity, show up with willingness to, even if we forget to show up and we get lost or distracted for a while, just to keep coming back, which is why I've asked you to work with mala beads, because it helps you to stay honest, and it helps you just to do the practice. And it only takes 15 minutes. It's not really a big ask. So, just to come back if you forget. And that is your part in the process. But to recognize that when the big breakthroughs happen is mysterious. Most people that I know who are deep meditators, when they've shared about their experience, everyone says the same thing, which is that often, when you're doing a specific practice, it doesn't necessarily feel like all the lights and bells and whistles are happening. But if you do the practice, what is inevitable is that, issues that are occluding your further development will present themselves, and that will help to clear the cobwebs of closure. And what's likely is that you'll find yourself just doing something ordinary, like going for a walk or being in the shower or just having a cup of tea and looking out the window. And all of a sudden, you just feel connected. You feel more loving. You feel more joyful. You feel the gift of life. Or maybe you're, visiting your family and you just feel kinder towards everyone, and you have more patience with everyone, and you're just not taking their stuff so personally. Or you might notice that you're grocery shopping and there's just more generosity that emerges and more patience as you're standing in the checkout line, and you look around you and you start feeling how much you love everybody, and there's a natural happiness that's just there. These are all part of the fruits of staying with a practice, because a practice does start to change you. It changes your subtle body, right? It changes your orientation. It changes the way you think and relate over time. And particularly practices that really challenge the felt sense of being separate, as this one does. And practices that are really designed to help you feel your unity, and as this one does. So for the coming month, here's what I'm inviting you to focus on the front and back breath. So, what does that mean? So, if you were to imagine that your heart could be breathed front and back simultaneously, and if you were to feel into the back part of your heart, and particularly if you were to kind of contemplate, like, what and who has played a part in bringing you to this point on your spiritual path, or even in your human journey, and you would see that you haven't arrived to where you are except through tremendous gifts and love and generosity of so many other beings. So, on the most basic level, we are here because of the gifts and the generosity and the love and the kindness and the service of our parents and our ancestors to us, even if they didn't do a perfect job and there were also things that they passed down to you that weren't so great. At the same time, they gave you life and they fed you and they did their best to help you to be here in life. And so we can open to feel and receive the love, the goodness that has come down through your ancestral lines. And you can also open to consider all of the teachers that you've had, all of the maybe yoga teachers, maybe meditation teachers, maybe spiritual teachers who have shared their practices with you, have shared their wisdom with you, have nurtured you in some way spiritually, even if they didn't provide all the answers that you wanted, and maybe they gave some things that weren't so great as well. You can still feel the truth of what they have given you that has helped you along the path. We can open further to consider their teachers, the fact that they didn't exist, their love and wisdom didn't exist independently either. And so we can start to feel this exponential quality and realize that somehow this stream of wisdom and truth and grace has been flowing since the beginning of time and has been handed down as stories and gifts and books and love and care and all sorts of really lovely qualities, but that really it's an embodiment of grace moving through human beings over the ages, right down to you. And that your practice and your sincerity and what gets liberated as you do your inner work isn't just for you to be a little happier and more peaceful. It's really to allow more love and wisdom and truth and goodness and beauty to pour forth out of you deeper into life for generations that will come after us. And I don't just mean your children and perhaps your grandchildren, but for those of us who don't have physical children, the fruits of our practice, we hope, I pray, will make it more easier for the generations of people who find their way to the spiritual path to ride on our coattails as we have ridden on the coattails of some pretty beautiful beings. And so as we feel that breath expanding on the back and front levels, the invitation is to let yourself feel the love and the miracle, really, of all that has been flowing, the grace and the love and the wisdom that has been handed down, that has flowed to you, has flowed through you, that wants to flow beyond you, that connects you to all the love in the universe, all the goodness in the universe, and the recognition that your life really is for the purpose of sharing this and letting it flow freely, that our whole world may be made better because of it. So, for me personally, I find this is a very beautiful aspect of the practice and really helps to bring forth the reverence and the wonder and the humility and the understanding of why we actually do spiritual work at all and what it's really all about, which really is to dissolve the sense of separation and to dissolve the unnecessary narcissism that comes with that, and to help us really feel our value and our our practice in the broader scheme of things. So, my invitation is to keep that in your focus as you do the 108 breaths, but focus on it in that dimension and enjoy that. And also, it might inspire you to just give thanks to what you've received and to, perhaps kiss those books that are on your bookshelf that have been significant for you. Just to say a prayer or two of thanks for your teachers and for their teachers, and to allow a little more forgiveness of your parents, and to recognize that whatever difficulties has happened there, there's also love and wisdom that has been handed down too. And we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. So, dear ones, I want to leave you with a beautiful poem from the 14th century Kashmiri mystic whose name was Lala. And she said something that is so beautiful, I think, and is really resonant and relevant to where we're going this month with the practice. She said, "Whatever I do, the responsibility is mine. But like the one who plants the orchard, what comes of what I do, the fruits, will be for others. I dedicate my practice to God within, and wherever I go, the way is blessed." So my love and my blessings are with you as you engage this practice. My encouragement to connect with one another and to be accountable to one another, perhaps by a little WhatsApp or text, so that you help one another to stay motivated and stay with this practice. And journal anything that might be coming up for you, and perhaps, reach out to your inquiry partner to explore that or look at that together. And just may this make us all deeper and wiser and more loving and more beautiful human beings. And let that grace flow to hydrate our parched and tired earth. So I thank you for your dedication to your practice and for the love that you are. And I look forward to hearing more from you as you go further with this. Okay, thank you.